What if the ground beneath us is quietly losing its life support system? Have you ever thought about what happens when a forest disappears? Imagine a world where birds have nowhere left to sing, where animals roam in silence because their homes are gone. This is not a distant future. It is happening right now. Every second, forests are being cut down somewhere on Earth. And with every tree that falls, an entire ecosystem begins to collapse. Trees are not just wood, they are living lifelines. They provide shelter, food, oxygen, and balance. Without them, countless species struggle to survive. Deforestation is one of the biggest environmental threats of our time. Yet many people still underestimate its impact. Forests are home to over half of the world's wildlife. When forests disappear, so do entire species. Not slowly, but often rapidly and permanently. Animals like tigers, orangutans, and elephants lose their habitats. They are forced into smaller and dangerous areas. This increases conflict between humans and wildlife. A peaceful balance is replaced with survival struggle. But wildlife is not the only victim. The environment itself begins to break down. Trees play a crucial role in regulating climate. They absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and release the oxygen we breathe every day. Without forests, carbon levels rise dangerously. This leads to global warming and climate change. Weather patterns become unpredictable and extreme. Heat waves become hotter, and storms become stronger. Floods and droughts become more frequent. Entire communities suffer the consequences. But the damage starts silently in the forest. A tree is cut, and no immediate alarm is heard. But the ecosystem feels the loss instantly. Soil begins to weaken without tree roots holding it. Erosion slowly destroys fertile land. Rivers become polluted with loose soil and debris. Water cycles begin to change dramatically. Rainfall patterns shift due to forest loss. Even distant regions feel the impact of deforestation because forests are part of a global system, not isolated patches of green. Every forest is connected to Earth's balance, and every loss disrupts that balance further. Wildlife that depends on specific trees cannot adapt quickly. Some species cannot survive outside their natural habitat. This leads to extinction, often unnoticed until it is too late. Scientists warn that biodiversity is rapidly declining, and deforestation is one of the leading causes. Biodiversity is essential for a healthy planet. It ensures ecosystems remain stable and resilient. Without it, nature becomes fragile and unpredictable. Human life is also deeply connected to forests. Medicines, food, and resources often come from forest ecosystems. Losing forests means losing potential discoveries, including cures for diseases we have not yet found. But the destruction continues for agriculture and urban expansion. Forest land is cleared for farms and cities, often without considering long-term consequences. Short-term gain leads to long-term damage, and that damage is becoming harder to reverse. Once a forest is gone, it takes decades or centuries to recover, and some ecosystems never fully return. The question is no longer if deforestation is harmful. The question is how much more damage we can still prevent, and whether we choose to act before it is too late. To understand deforestation, we must first understand what is being lost. A forest is not just a collection of trees. It is a complex, living system. Every plant, animal, and microorganism plays a role. When one part disappears, the entire system weakens. Trees provide nesting spaces for countless bird species. They offer food through fruits, leaves, and seeds. And they create shelter from predators and harsh weather. Many animals depend on specific tree species to survive. If those trees are cut down, they cannot simply adapt. They are forced to migrate or face extinction. But migration is not always possible. Human settlements often block natural movement paths. Roads, farms, and cities fragment natural habitats. This fragmentation is one of the most dangerous effects of deforestation. It isolates animal populations from each other, reducing genetic diversity over time, which makes species weaker and more vulnerable. Forests also regulate temperature in their surroundings. Without trees, land becomes hotter and drier. This affects both wildlife and human communities nearby. Rainforests, in particular, act like Earth's cooling system. They release moisture into the air through transpiration. This process helps form clouds and rainfall. When forests disappear, rainfall patterns are disrupted. Some regions experience severe droughts, while others suffer from unexpected flooding. The balance of nature begins to collapse. Soil is another major victim of deforestation. Tree roots hold soil together and prevent erosion. Without them, heavy rains wash away fertile layers. This leads to land degradation and desertification. Farmers lose productive soil needed for crops, and food security becomes a growing concern. Rivers and streams are also affected. Eroded soil enters waterways, increasing sediment levels. This reduces water quality and harms aquatic life. Fish populations decline as habitats become polluted. Entire freshwater ecosystems begin to suffer. Carbon storage is another critical function of forests. Trees absorb carbon dioxide and store it for decades. When they are cut and burned, carbon is released back into the air. This accelerates climate change significantly. Rising greenhouse gases trap more heat in the atmosphere, leading to global temperature increases. Wildlife struggles to adapt to changing climates. Many species are sensitive to even small temperature shifts. This increases extinction risks worldwide. Deforestation also impacts indigenous communities. Many rely on forests for food, medicine, and shelter. Their way of life is deeply connected to the land. When forests disappear, cultural heritage is also lost. In addition, illegal logging worsens the crisis. Valuable trees are cut down without regulation or control, often for short-term economic gain. But the long-term environmental cost is far greater. Forest fires are also increasing due to human activity. Some are intentional, used to clear land quickly. Others spread uncontrollably due to dry conditions. These fires destroy habitats in a matter of hours, leaving behind barren and lifeless landscapes. Recovery from such damage is extremely slow, and sometimes nature cannot fully heal. The more forests we lose, the less stable the planet becomes, and the consequences continue to multiply. One of the most alarming effects of deforestation is biodiversity loss. Biodiversity means the variety of life on Earth. It includes animals, plants, fungi, and microorganisms. Forests are the richest ecosystems for biodiversity. When forests are destroyed, this diversity collapses. Many species lose their only natural habitat. Some species exist only in specific forest regions. Once those forests are gone, those species vanish forever. This is how extinction silently accelerates. Scientists estimate thousands of species are lost every year. Many of them are never even discovered by humans. Deforestation also disrupts food chains. Every forest has a delicate balance of predators and prey. When one species disappears, others are affected too. For example, losing insects affects birds and reptiles. Losing trees affects herbivores and everything above them. This chain reaction spreads through the entire ecosystem. Eventually, the system becomes unstable and weak. Forest destruction also affects pollination. Many plants rely on animals to pollinate them. Bees, birds, and insects play a critical role. Without forests, these pollinators lose their habitat, which leads to reduced plant reproduction. And fewer plants mean less food for animals. This creates a downward spiral in nature. Deforestation also increases the risk of zoonotic diseases. When animals are forced into smaller spaces, contact increases. This raises the chance of disease transmission. Humans also come closer to displaced wildlife, increasing the risk of new infectious diseases spreading. Forest loss also affects air quality. Trees act as natural air filters. They trap dust, pollutants, and harmful particles. Without them, air becomes more polluted. This affects human health, especially in urban areas. Respiratory diseases become more common. Another major issue is desertification. When forests are removed, land becomes dry and barren. Moisture in the soil decreases rapidly. Over time, fertile land turns into desert-like conditions. This reduces agricultural productivity drastically. Farmers are forced to abandon degraded land, which increases poverty and food shortages. Deforestation also disrupts water cycles. Trees help move water from soil to the atmosphere. Without them, rainfall becomes irregular. Some regions receive too much rain, causing floods. Others receive too little, causing droughts. This imbalance affects millions of people globally. Forests also protect watersheds. They regulate the flow of rivers and groundwater. Without forests, water systems become unstable. Flooding becomes more severe during heavy rains, and water scarcity increases during dry seasons. Deforestation also contributes to global carbon imbalance. Less forest means less carbon absorption. More carbon in the atmosphere means stronger global warming. This leads to rising sea levels and melting ice caps. Coastal regions become more vulnerable to flooding. Small island nations face existential threats. Climate change impacts intensify worldwide, and wildlife struggles to adapt quickly enough. Ecosystems collapse faster than they can recover. The natural balance of Earth is deeply disturbed, and the consequences affect every living organism. The impact of deforestation is not limited to forests alone. It spreads across entire continents and oceans. Because Earth's systems are deeply interconnected, what happens in one region affects another. For example, deforestation in rainforests can change global weather patterns. This shows how powerful forests truly are. Yet they are being removed at an alarming rate. Human activities remain the main cause of deforestation. Agriculture is one of the largest drivers. Forests are cleared to make space for crops and livestock. Logging is another major contributor. Trees are cut for timber, paper, and fuel. Urban expansion also consumes large forest areas. Cities continue to grow into natural habitats. Roads and infrastructure fragment once connected ecosystems. Mining activities destroy forests to extract resources. These activities often leave land permanently damaged. Reforestation is possible, but not always effective. Newly planted forests cannot fully replace old ecosystems because mature forests take centuries to develop, and many complex relationships cannot be recreated quickly. Wildlife adaptation is also extremely difficult. Animals cannot easily adjust to artificial environments. Zoos and reserves cannot replace natural ecosystems. They only preserve a small fraction of biodiversity. The emotional impact on wildlife is also significant. Animals experience stress when their habitats are destroyed. They lose territory, food sources, and safety. This leads to reduced reproduction rates and declining population numbers over time. Some species become endangered very quickly. Others disappear before conservation efforts begin. Forest fragmentation isolates animal groups. This prevents natural migration and breeding patterns. Genetic diversity decreases as populations shrink. Weak populations become more prone to disease and less able to survive environmental changes. Deforestation also affects indigenous wildlife relationships. Many species depend on each other for survival. When one disappears, others are affected indirectly. The balance of predator and prey is disrupted. This leads to overpopulation of some species and extinction of others. Forests also act as natural climate regulators. Without them, temperature extremes increase, heat becomes more intense during summers, and cold becomes harsher in some regions. This instability affects migration patterns of animals. Birds, for example, may lose traditional migration routes and fail to reach breeding or feeding grounds. Ecosystems that once thrived become unstable. Human communities are also deeply affected. Loss of forests increases disaster risks. Floods, landslides, and storms become more destructive. Agriculture becomes less reliable due to climate changes. Food production systems face growing pressure. Water resources become less predictable, and health risks increase due to environmental imbalance. The economic cost of deforestation is also rising. Countries spend more on disaster recovery and adaptation than on prevention and conservation. Yet prevention is far more effective than repair, because damaged ecosystems take generations to heal, and some losses are irreversible. The urgency to act has never been greater. At this point, the question is no longer about awareness. It is about responsibility and action, because every day of delay increases the damage. Forests continue to disappear while solutions remain underused, but change is still possible if action is taken seriously. Conservation efforts can help protect remaining forests. Protected areas and national parks preserve biodiversity. They give wildlife a safe space to survive and recover. Sustainable forestry practices reduce unnecessary destruction and allow humans to use resources without total loss. Reforestation projects help restore damaged landscapes by planting trees and rebuilding ecosystems slowly. But success requires long-term commitment, not short-term efforts. governments play a crucial role in forest protection. Strong environmental laws can limit illegal logging and regulate land use more effectively. Communities also play an important role. Local awareness can reduce harmful practices and encourage sustainable living choices. Individuals also contribute through everyday actions. Reducing paper waste helps lower demand for logging. Supporting eco-friendly products promotes sustainability. And choosing responsible brands creates market pressure. Education is one of the most powerful tools. When people understand the consequences, behavior changes. Schools and media can spread environmental awareness widely. Technology can also support forest monitoring. Satellites now track deforestation in real time, helping authorities respond faster to illegal activity. Innovation can support conservation in powerful ways, but technology alone is not enough. Human action and awareness must guide it. Wildlife protection requires patience and persistence, because ecosystems cannot be rebuilt overnight. Every tree planted today is an investment in the future. Every forest protected is a victory for life. The survival of countless species depends on choices made now. Future generations will inherit the results of today's actions, either a thriving natural world or a damaged one. The responsibility lies with everyone, not just leaders, because environmental change starts with collective effort. Small actions multiplied across millions of people create real impact. Even simple habits can contribute to preservation. Respecting nature begins with understanding its value, and acting before it is too late. Forests are not infinite resources. They are living systems that need protection. Wildlife is not separate from humans. It is part of the same ecosystem we depend on. When forests suffer, humanity suffers too. There is no separation between environmental health and human survival. Protecting forests means protecting the future. And protecting biodiversity means protecting stability. The choice is still in our hands today. We can continue the path of destruction or choose restoration and responsibility. Nature has given humanity everything it needs to survive. Now, it is our turn to protect it. The damage is serious, but not yet fully irreversible. Hope still exists if action follows awareness, and awareness becomes meaningful only through change. The story of forests is also the story of life on Earth, and that story is still being written. What happens next depends on the choices we make today, and whether we choose to protect or lose our natural world.